Good morning, and thank you so much for joining me today for our live presentation on overnight rail journeys with Amtrak Vacations. I have the very good fortune to be your host this morning. My name is Colleen McCarthy, and I've been with Amtrak Vacations for almost 8 years now. Amazing how time flies, for sure. Now, I have had fantastic opportunities to travel on many of Amtrak's most popular routes that we're going to look at today and visit many of the fantastic destinations that we will see in today's presentation. So, if you do have any questions about the train, what it's like on board, about the destinations or the different vacations available, please go ahead and type those questions away at any time. You should see the questions box on the right-hand side of your screen. And you should also see that we have a couple fantastic downloads available for you. We have our Amtrak Systems map, which I know everyone loves to look at. We'll see that a little later in the presentation, but you can download a copy for yourself. And we've got a great flyer about those onboard accommodations with some more information about them. So again, please do feel free to type questions away at any time throughout the broadcast. We will come to all of your questions at the end of today's broadcast. I will get through as many as we have time for, and do not worry because if I don't have time to answer your question live on the presentation today, we will make sure that somebody from the team does reach out to you and send you the answer to your question, send over that information that you need. Now, just a little bit about today's presentation and what we are going to cover. Of course, we are going to look at how upgrading to the private accommodations on board Amtrak enhances your safety and privacy on board. We'll look at what those rooms are like. I've got loads of photos here for you so you can see them configured during the daytime and at night. We'll talk about what your onboard experience is like in general as well. We'll look at how Amtrak is adapting to provide a safe environment. We'll talk a little bit about the Amtrak vacations, how they work with the train, the hotels, the sightseeing, and I will cover a few fantastic limited time offers, including an exclusive offer which is available just for you folks to thank you for joining us today on the webinar. We will get to that at the end, so do make sure to stay tuned all the way to the end so you can see those fantastic discount offers, including your unique promotion code. Now, I love to start all of these presentations by showing you folks the Amtrak Systems map. And the reason I love to do this is because I think it does a great job of illustrating how many places that Amtrak does travel to across the USA and up into Canada. As you can see here, there are over 500 Amtrak stations throughout the US and Canada. As well, Amtrak visits 46 out of the 48 continuous United States. So wherever you might be interested in traveling to, we can pretty much get you there by train. And it's very easy to start out from your hometown as well. So you'll see when I look at some of our fantastic vacations later on that a lot of them start from a big station like Chicago or Los Angeles. But if you don't live in a big city, do not worry. We can easily have you start right from your hometown. The great thing about that is a lot of these smaller stations are actually already on the major Amtrak routes, so you don't even need to change trains. But when you do change trains, it is very easy to do, so we will talk a little bit about that as well. Now, I know this is a topic that is on everyone's mind. Of course, we know that as you begin to travel again, your number one concern will be your health and safety for yourself and your family. So I do just want to touch on what Amtrak is doing to maintain a safe environment in the current climate. Now, at this time, facial coverings are required, both in the stations and on board the train, so you will need a face mask or covering. But the great thing about upgrading to the roomette or bedroom or other sleeper accommodations is that when you are in the privacy of your own private room, you can go ahead and remove that face mask. You don't need to wear it inside your roomette or bedroom, just if you venture out to the public areas of the train. Of course, they are enhancing their cleaning protocols. So the equipment both on board the train and in the stations is cleaned and sanitized very frequently. Amtrak is currently cashless and contactless. And what that means is they are just trying to minimize the amount of contact between yourselves and the Amtrak staff for everyone's safety. So, for example, you'll hold up your ticket either on your smartphone, tablet, or piece of paper if you've printed it out. and the Amtrak employee will go ahead and scan it with their wand, and you never have to pass anything back and forth, so you minimize contact that way. In the stations, they are putting up social distancing posters and floor stickers to indicate to folks how far apart to stand for safety's sake, particularly in those higher trafficked areas like when you're waiting to get on board the train. And if you are traveling in the coach seating, Amtrak is running at right about 50% capacity. They're deliberately reducing their capacity to ensure distance. And how this will work is you and your party will be seated together when you board the train, but they'll make sure to leave space in between your party and the next party. So let's jump right in to what life is like on board the train. I know that's why everyone's here today. You want to talk about what your train experience is going to be like and see some great shots of the interior of the train. But before we can get on board the train, we do have to consider what we need to prepare. I know it's a very common question, what to pack for the train. Now, Amtrak does have a very generous luggage allowance. You are allowed 2 free carry on bags per person, as well as a personal item like a purse, laptop, bag, backpack, that sort of thing, smaller personal item, plus those 2 free carry on bags. And now, those carry on bags, folks, are a larger size than you can bring on an airplane. They're quite decent sized for the carry ons. And as well, most stations do allow checked baggage. Now, all of the major stations that we're going to look at today certainly do have checked baggage available. If you are coming from a smaller station, maybe near your hometown, just check with us or your local travel agent when you give us a call, and we can let you know if checked baggage is available. But in all of those places where it is available, you can have not only those 2 free carry on bags, but you can also have 2 free checked bags as well. Now, the checked baggage does work very similar to an airplane. So if you check your bag in at your departing station, let's say it is Los Angeles, you will not see it again until you arrive at your destination. Let's say that's the Grand Canyon. So if you check your bag in, you do need to make sure to bring everything that you need on board the train in a carry-on bag that you are going to carry on board the train with you. So I highly recommend that you do not forget your toothbrush, your pajamas, your chargers for your phone, tablet, other electronic devices, anything that you want for entertainment, like a deck of cards or a book to read, clothes for tomorrow if you're going to be on an overnight ride, right? You can also bring whatever you like as far as shampoo and toiletries. Amtrak does provide little soaps and things, but if you have any special shampoo or conditioner or whatever you want to bring, you can bring that. There are no size restrictions on liquids, so nobody is going to measure that bottle of shampoo. You can bring a normal size bottle if you like, which I think is fantastic for traveling on board Amtrak. And you can also bring your own food and drinks on board. So if you want to pack a picnic for the train, you're welcome to do that. Now, if you are going to be checking luggage, we do recommend that you arrive at the station about an hour prior to the departure because you do need to check that luggage 45 minutes prior to the train leaving. Now, you do not have to show up at the Amtrak station 2, 3, 4 hours early like you would for an airplane. 1 hour is plenty of time. And if you're not going to be checking baggage, if you're just bringing carry-on bags, you'd really be good with about a half an hour prior to the train departure. So much more convenient to travel by train, certainly, than it is by airplane. Now, the first type of seating on board the train, or first type of accommodations, I guess, on board the train is the coach seating. I actually don't love the term coach because coach, I think, makes folks think of an airplane, and that is not the experience at all with Amtrak. The coach seating on board Amtrak is very comfortable. As you can see, it is 2 seats and then an aisle, and then there's 2 more seats, so there is no dreaded middle seat on board the Amtrak train. You also have loads of legroom. You can kind of see it in the photo there. You have lots of legroom. You do not need to worry about the person in front of you reclining because you pretty much can't even really kick the back of the seat in front of you, at least if you're short like me. Now, the seats do recline back quite far. It's about a 45-degree angle, so much further than they would on an airline. If you have a recliner, maybe chair in your living room, go lean back in that, and that should give you a bit of an idea about how far back the Amtrak seats recline. They do have a little footrest that comes up as well, so it is very comfortable, plush seating there. Of course, as you can see in the photo, you've got great big picture windows to see those incredible views as you travel cross country. You've also got storage for your luggage overhead. Now, that storage is definitely a little bit larger than you would find on an airplane. But if you don't feel comfortable lifting your bag overhead or you do have a larger bag, there is storage for your bag up at the front of the car as well. So when you first board that coach car, there is going to be a little bit of a luggage storage area where you can leave a larger bag. Certainly, of course, anything smaller, you can pop over your head there. With the coach seats, you do have access to the dining car and the cafe car, but do keep in mind that you would be paying for the food out of pocket. The food is not included with the coach seats, but you can bring your own food on board, as I mentioned, or you can head on down to the cafe or the dining car and purchase a meal there. Just another shot of the coach seats. I think this one does a great job of illustrating those big, beautiful picture windows. So no matter where you sit or stay on board an Amtrak train, you'll have incredible views as you travel through some of these beautiful scenic routes. But of course, if you are going to be going overnight on board the Amtrak train, we do always recommend that you at least look into the sleeping accommodations. The sleeping accommodations on board Amtrak are very comfortable, and there's a lot of great perks to go with them. Now, one of those perks is that the sleeper accommodation passengers do board separately. So essentially, it's like a priority boarding. They'll make the announcement overhead at the station just for those sleeper car passengers to board the train. And this is fantastic because you can beat the crowds, head down to the train in a leisurely fashion, and not have to worry about being part of the masses there. So it's a great little perk of having the sleeper car accommodations. Now, the first sleeper car accommodation I want to show you folks is the roomette. The roomette is designed for one or two passengers. During the day, it's two chairs which face each other, and then at night it folds down into bunk beds. As you can see in the photo, there's big, beautiful picture windows to really take in those spectacular views. Uh, there are outlets as well, so you can certainly charge your devices, your phone, your tablets, whatever it might be. You have a little fold-out tray table. You can set up your laptop and watch a movie that you've downloaded. Or, of course, if you like, you can certainly eat your meals in your roomette as well. You can have them delivered to you right there in your roomette. We'll look at that in just a little bit. Now, with the roomettes, you do have restrooms and showers. Those facilities are just down the hall from you. And I know that's a common question, sort of how does that work and what's that like? With the roomettes, those facilities, as I mentioned, are just down the hall, but you're only sharing them with the other folks who have a roomette in your particular train car. So you're not sharing with the entire train. You're not even sharing with everyone that has a roomette. You're only sharing with the other folks that have a roomette in your particular train car. And the other fantastic thing about having any type of sleeper on board Amtrak is that you will have a sleeper car attendant. Now, he or she, I can already guarantee, is going to be fantastic. These are some of my favorite people that I've met along my travels throughout the US on board Amtrak. The sleeper car attendants are super friendly, they're super knowledgeable. These are going to be the folks that change your seats down into beds at night. They'll change your beds back into seats in the morning. They'll help you make any reservations you need with the dining car. They're super knowledgeable, as I said. They can tell you if you're passing uh, a mountain, they can tell you what mountain that is or what lake that is right out the window. And these sleeper car attendants are the folks who are responsible for the facilities. So they are responsible for keeping those facilities nice and clean in between passengers. So really, I've never had any kind of issue with the facilities, using the shared facilities with the roomettes. Um, so those sleeper car attendants are very proud of their work and very dedicated. So now with the roomettes as well, I should mention that you do have that privacy door you can close. You can see it in the photo there. You can slide that across very easily, lock it from the inside if you like at night. You also have big heavy curtains which you can draw across, and they do Velcro to the sides if you want to block out the light. So for example, if you do not want to rise with the sunrise in the morning, you can go ahead and draw those curtains across so that you have a little bit of light blocking going on. Just another shot of the roomette here. I like this one because it does illustrate, I think, that you do have a good amount of space, even though you're facing each other. Now these folks are leaning forward a bit, but you really don't have to worry about knocking knees or anything like that. You can also see in here there is a little bit of storage space available underneath the seats for your bags. I do certainly recommend when you are staying in a roomette that you bring a smaller sized bag to your room with just the essentials. So your toothbrush, your PJs, your book or deck of cards, whatever it might be, just a smaller bag. There is a space in each one of the sleeper cars itself for larger bags. So if you are bringing a larger bag on your vacation, no problem. You can store that in the luggage storage area and then bring a smaller bag up to your roomette. And here's a photo for you folks of what the roomettes look like when they're set up at night. So as I mentioned, they are bunk beds. So they're designed for one person on the bottom bunk and one person on the top bunk there. Now, one thing that folks do ask a lot is about getting up to the top bunk in either the roomette or the bedroom, because both of those are bunk bed style rooms. Now, I've never had a lot of trouble getting up to the top of the roomette to that bunk bed. You can just about see it by the gentleman's elbow. The arm he's resting on the bed there. You can just see a little bit of blue. There are two steps in the roomette that you can use to climb up to that top bunk. So that's one step there. There's another step that you just can't quite see in the photo, unfortunately. But there are two steps to help you climb up to the top bunk. In the bedroom accommodations that we'll see in a moment, is actually a ladder to help you climb up to the top bunk. Now, if you do have mobility concerns about getting up to that top bunk, one of the things that we do often recommend for folks is to take two roomettes, maybe right across the hall from each other. Now, if you do that, you can sit together during the day in whichever roomette has the better view, right? So if all of a sudden a mountain vista comes up on the right-hand side of the train, you can pop over to your right-hand roomette and hang out there for a few hours. And then when it comes to nighttime, you can fold down just the bottom bunk in each roomette. And that way each person has their own bottom bunk to sleep in. Plenty of space in that case. And nobody has to worry about climbing up to a top bunk. Now, if you are looking for a little bit more space in your accommodations on board the train, I do recommend that you look into the bedrooms on board the train. So the bedrooms are designed for two adults, but you can also sleep two adults and one child in there. Typically for Amtrak, a child is age 12 or under. Now, this is still going to be bunk bed style accommodation at night, but the bottom bunk is a little bit wider. So you could put one adult and one child on that bottom bunk and put the second adult on the top bunk. During the day, as you can see in the photo, the seating is it's a love seat. So it's a little hard to tell in the photo, but there's plenty of room that the gentleman could sit next to the lady on board this train on the love seat. Or certainly you can sit across from each other because there is a freestanding chair as well. Now, with the bedrooms, again, you do have the big, beautiful picture window, the fold-out tray, the outlets, the climate controls, everything that you have in the roomette and more. As you can see above the gentleman's head there is some more storage for luggage. So there is a little bit more storage space available to you in the bedroom. The bedroom is just about twice the size of the roomette, essentially. Now, the other fantastic feature of having the bedroom accommodations on board the train is that the bedrooms do have their own little private toilet and shower stall, along with a sink and vanity. So all of your facilities that you need on board the train are private to you in your room. They are a little bit on the smaller side, similar to a sailboat, maybe if you've ever been on a sailboat, that style where you get the whole little stall wet when you turn on the shower, but they are private, which is a really fantastic feature, certainly, of having the bedroom. So not only do you have the more space, you also have those private facilities. And here's a shot for you folks, what the bedrooms look like at night. So you can see, again, they are bunk bed style. That little chair the gentleman was sitting in earlier does fold up to just give you a little bit more space to walk around. It's just out of frame, but there is a ladder that you can set up to get up to that top bunk if you need it. And as well, with both the bedroom and the roomette, I know sometimes folks do ask about they're concerned about rolling out of the bedroom or the top bunk. There are some straps that you can set up if you do need them to just ensure that you won't roll out of the top bunk. Of course, the train does move throughout the night. I find it extremely soothing. Kind of rocks you to sleep that way. But if you are concerned, there's very easily some safety netting essentially that you can set up there for the top bunk. Now, I should mention that Amtrak has two different styles of trains. The first style of train is called a superliner train. The superliner train is a double-decker train, so there's rooms on the bottom floor and rooms on the top floor. Those are the most common type of equipment that Amtrak has. They do run, basically, you can think of it from the Mississippi River all the way west out to the West Coast. So all of the big popular routes that we're going to look at in just a moment, the Empire Builder, the California Zephyr, the Southwest Chief, the Coast Starlight, if you've heard those names before, basically anything running in the western two-thirds of the country are going to be superliner trains. The east coast of the US has what's called a viewliner train. Now, the viewliner trains are only one level, and that's actually because they can't really fit through, the double-decker trains can't fit through some of the shorter tunnels here on the East Coast, the older tunnels that have been built. So on the East Coast, they do have viewliner equipment, which means that it's one story. And the reason that I point this out, the roomettes and bedrooms are very similar uh, in the superliners and the viewliners, but only the superliner trains have the family bedroom, which is the room that we are seeing just now here. So if you are traveling anywhere west to any of the national parks out west, anywhere to the West Coast, pretty much again from the Mississippi River all the way to the Pacific Ocean, you are on a superliner train, so you do have these fantastic family bedrooms available to you. Now, the family bedroom is designed to sleep two adults and two children. And as you can see, it does have four bunks. Now, those are two adult-sized bunks and two child-sized bunks. So I do sometimes have folks ask me, can we put four adults in the family bedroom? My kids are older, they're older teens. Will they fit in the family bedroom? And unfortunately, you really can't fit four adults in there because those child-sized bunks are about 4'9" and 4'6" respectively. So you'd have to be very short adults to fit on that child-sized bunk. But they are a fantastic option for families if you are traveling as a family with two smaller kids. Now, if you are traveling as a family with larger kids, or you are traveling maybe with four adults, but you want to share your room, what you can actually do is take two of the bedrooms that we saw just a moment ago, and if we have them available, you can book them right next to each other, and we can take the wall out in between them. And that's going to create what's called a bedroom suite. So you'll have seating for four during the day. You'll have four bunk beds during the day, two bottom bunks and two top bunks. So that is an option for you, certainly if you are traveling as a party of four. So do let us know. And of course, Amtrak does have an accessible bedroom as well. Now, the layout of the accessible bedroom is slightly different between the Viewliner and the Superliner. This one here is the Viewliner train. You can tell because they've got an extra row of windows along the top there. But either way, with the accessible bedroom, it is seating during the day. It is a little bit of a larger room because it does have space available for the wheelchair. So we can lock the wheelchair in place if you want to stay in the wheelchair, or certainly you can transfer to the seating and then we can store the wheelchair off to the side. And then at night, it is still going to be bunk bed style bedding. So as you can see here, there's the bottom bunk. That top bunk would fold right out from the wall if there was a companion who needed the top bunk. Now, with the accessible rooms, you do have an accessible restroom facilities with a toilet and sink. And then on the Superliner trains, the shower is just outside the room. It is an accessible shower, it does have a little seat in it, but it is just outside the room. Now, I know that some folks do ask about getting up to the top bunk in the accessible room. There is a little ladder typically, but if you were concerned about it, you could always book the accessible room as well as a roomette. Certainly, there are roomettes just outside the hall, just down the hall from the accessible room. So again, you could spend the day together, and then at night you could get the one person could sleep in the roomette, and the person who needs the accessible room could sleep there in the accessible room. Now with Amtrak, they do have accessibility options for you in the stations as well. So we can certainly get you luggage assistance, wheelchair to use in the station, or whatever you might need in almost every station here across the US. Now, one of the other fantastic perks of having those sleeping accommodations on board the train is that your meals are included for you. So, whenever you're on the train, breakfast, lunch, dinner, that meal is included for you with the price of the roomette or bedroom or accessible room or family room. So, no matter which type of accommodations you have, those meals are included for you. And you can choose to have them delivered to you right there in your room. So Amtrak does have a dining car, but if you don't prefer to go down to the dining car, especially if you're traveling right now and you want to be socially distanced, it's no problem at all. You can still have access to the full menu. You can see the person ordering off the menu on the left-hand side there. And then they'll go ahead and deliver the fresh hot meal right to your room at the specified time. So it's a really great option for you if you do have those roomettes and bedrooms to go ahead and get those meals delivered to you right there in your room. Now, dining on board the train is certainly one of the highlights of the onboard experience for sure. If you do choose to head down to the dining car, it is still open even right now. With the dining cars, at this time, you will not be seated with another party. So your party will travel to the dining car, and you'll be seated at a table by yourselves under sort of normal times. Amtrak, if you were traveling as a single person or as a couple, you may be seated with another single person or another couple, which is actually really kind of nice. You get to know people and you meet a lot of interesting folks on board the trains. But with social distancing, that is not going on right now. So if you do choose to eat your meal in the dining car, you will be at your own table. Now, on those superliner trains, those double-decker trains, again, that's the vast majority of the trains that we're going to look at today and here throughout the US. Uh, those trains, because they are double-decker trains, they do have kitchen facilities on the bottom level and then the dining car on the top level. And what's great about that is that typically the meals are prepared fresh on board the train there for you, and you can, order your steak medium, and you'll have it cooked medium. So they can certainly do a lot of things for you there with those dining facilities on board the train. Now, on the East Coast trains, the Viewliner trains, the dining is a little bit different. It's called flexible dining. You still have a lot of choices to choose from. It is still hot meals, but it's a little less customizable because they don't have the full kitchens on board there. Now, with the current COVID-19 situation at this time, they do have the flexible dining on all of the trains, but that is just temporary, just to make things a little bit easier and to reduce contact, with folks there. Now, one of the other fantastic features of traveling by train is that you can step off the train right into the open spaces of the national parks in so many cases. So, Glacier National Park, the train literally pulls up to the doorstep of Glacier National Park. Grand Canyon National Park, as we'll see in just a moment, we make it extremely easy for you to reach Grand Canyon National Park by train. And there's so many other national parks all across the US. We actually have a whole special program next week just on national parks. If you are interested specifically in the national parks, make sure that you tune in for that one. But now I just want to highlight some of the really fantastic itineraries that we have here with Amtrak Vacations featuring these beautiful, popular Amtrak train routes. Now that we've covered the roomettes, the bedrooms, the dining on board the train, I want to show you some of those fantastic routes to help you decide which train you might actually like to take to experience the roomettes, the bedrooms, and those fantastic onboard experiences. So the first one we're going to look at is called Highlights of America Coast to Coast. Now this is a really excellent itinerary because it does start here in Washington, D.C. on the East Coast with 2 nights in Washington. You travel overnight on board the Capital Limited train out to Chicago. We have you spend 2 nights in Chicago. Then you take the fantastic Southwest Chief, which is one of Amtrak's most famous routes, the Southwest Chief down to Arizona, where you visit the Grand Canyon, and then continue along to Los Angeles, one more overnight on the train from the Grand Canyon to Los Angeles. So this one is fantastic. It's an 11-day journey altogether. It does include 3 overnights on the train, and it includes 2 different train routes for you to experience. Now, with all of our Amtrak vacations, whenever we have you stay in the city, we do provide the accommodations for you as part of your vacation. And we'll see in just a bit, you have a wide variety of hotel choices there in each location. In addition to your train and your hotel accommodations, we do include the sightseeing for you as well. And of course, all of that sightseeing is customizable. But just to give you an idea, with this coast to coast trip, when you start in Washington, D.C., you have admission to the International Spy Museum, which is on the bottom left. It's a really neat museum all about espionage throughout the years. And then we also include the hop on, hop off sightseeing tour of Washington, D.C. Now, if you haven't been on a hop on, hop off tour before, they are a fantastic way to get around a new city. Without having to try and figure out their metro system. You can use that hop on, hop off bus to travel all throughout Washington, D.C. And while you are on board, it is narrated, so you're getting some great information and history about the area as well. And the way it works is that you get on the stop, maybe you're staying right across the road from the train station. You hop on the bus at the train station, you ride it to the first point of interest. Maybe it's the Lincoln Memorial. You get off the bus at the Lincoln Memorial, visit it, take your photos, and then get on the next bus to come by and take it maybe down to the Washington Monument or maybe to the Smithsonian Museums. So there's so much to see and do there in Washington, D.C., and these hop on, hop off buses are a great way to get around. Now, once you complete your stay in Washington, D.C., you'll board Amtrak's beautiful Capital Limited train, which is a really lovely ride from Washington, D.C. to Chicago. Now, you go through lots of really pretty little small towns, kind of these rolling hillsides. It's a really lovely train actually to do in the fall time. So if you folks were looking for some travel this fall, I do highly recommend the Capital Limited. Really beautiful foliage along this route in the fall, as you can see in the photo there. And it is one overnight on board the train. So it is going to be a great opportunity for you folks to pick up that roomette, that bedroom, to dine on board the train and really get that fantastic onboard experience. Now, on this journey, we do have you spend 2 nights in Chicago. And again, you've got a wide selection of hotel choices and some fantastic sightseeing included here as well. Now, included in Chicago for you, we do have admission to the Sky Deck, which is the observation deck at the very top of the Willis Tower, which you might know better as the Sears Tower. That was its name for a very long time. So you get these incredible far-reaching views of the city, as you can see in the bottom photo. We also include a fabulous architecture cruise on the Chicago River. So you get out on the water a little bit, you get a chance to see some of that beautiful architecture that makes Chicago so famous. And then after your stay in Chicago, you'll board Amtrak's amazing Southwest Chief train. Now, the Southwest Chief goes from Chicago all the way to Los Angeles, but we'll have you stop off in Arizona to visit the Grand Canyon. The Southwest Chief is so special because it travels through some beautiful red rock mountains, then coming into some really lovely desert scenery. And then, of course, you hit the Pacific coast once you get off in Los Angeles. So it's a really beautiful ride on the Southwest Chief. It's an overnight from Chicago out to Arizona, where we have you visit the Grand Canyon National Park. Now, I'm going to talk exclusively about the Grand Canyon on our next trip, so I'm not going to go into too much detail here, except to tell you that if you have never been to the Grand Canyon, you have to go. I can't recommend it highly enough. It's one of my favorite places all over the world. It's just absolutely stunning and breathtaking place to visit. And we will cover that in our very next trip. So I won't go into too much detail here, but you stop off along the Southwest Chief, you get off for a few nights and visit the incredible Grand Canyon National Park. We have you stay at one of the historic lodges right inside the national park. And then we bring you back down to the train to continue the rest of the Southwest Chief route and end up in Los Angeles. Now here in Los Angeles, we've got another hop on, hop off sightseeing tour for you. But as I mentioned, all of the sightseeing included in our vacations is customizable. So if you do want to swap out the hop on hop off maybe for a tour of the stars homes, or you want to go up to the Griffith Observatory and see the Hollywood sign, maybe you want to go out to Santa Monica Pier and check out the beach there in Los Angeles, we can certainly do any or all of these things for you. So this highlights of America Coast to Coast trip. As I mentioned, it's 11 days altogether. It's 7 nights hotel accommodations, 3 nights on board the train. So it's a great opportunity again for you to get one of those roomettes or bedrooms. great sightseeing and great stops along the way, of course, as we mentioned, Washington, Chicago, the Grand Canyon, of course, and Los Angeles. And starting at just $16.99 per person for 11 days of travel, including all of your hotel sightseeing and trains. So pretty fantastic value there for you folks. Now, I do just want to highlight quickly, I know it is a little bit of an unusual time to be trying to make some vacation plans. We know there's certain travel restrictions and we're not sure exactly when they might be lifted. So I just want to highlight quickly for you folks that we do currently have what we call the maximum flexibility policy or the maximum flexibility offer here at Amtrak Vacations. And basically what that means is that if you book your trip anytime before the 30th of September. It does not matter when you travel. You can travel this fall, next fall. You can even travel all the way into the summer of 2022. We do make your reservations if you need them up to 2 years in advance here with Amtrak Vacations. So it doesn't matter when you travel, could be a year or more from now. If anything does change and you do need to change your travel dates, change your itinerary, change your destination, or even cancel your trip, you can do that right up until 5 days prior to your departure. So, right up until 5 days prior to your departure, you can make any kind of changes you need or cancel the trip, and there will be no change fees and no cancellation penalties for you. And so I just want to let you know that you can book with confidence because if anything were to come up, if anything were to change, you have that extreme flexibility right up until 5 days before you leave. You can continue to make changes to your trip, or even if you needed to, you could cancel it, and there will be no change fees or penalties associated with that. And now to one of my very favorite trips that we have here with Amtrak Vacations, which is our Rails to the Grand Canyon. Now, this one is fantastic. It's a round trip ride from Los Angeles out to the Grand Canyon in Arizona and then back to Los Angeles at the end. So this one is really great. It's 2 overnights on board the train, but they're not very long nights. So this is a great kind of starter trip, I like to think of it. If you've never been on the train before and you're not quite ready to commit to, 2 weeks on board a train, this is a really great journey for you, especially if you're located on the West Coast or nearby there. This trip does leave Los Angeles in the early evening, and then you arrive at the Grand Canyon the next morning. And what's really fantastic about this trip is that we make it so easy for you here with Amtrak Vacations. So, as I mentioned, this is again on the Southwest Chief, that beautiful ride through the desert. Now, you do leave Los Angeles, you do board the train in Los Angeles in the early evening. And as I mentioned before, if you are a sleeper car passenger, you do get priority boarding for the train. But what I didn't mention is that a lot of stations across the US, a lot of the larger stations like Los Angeles, like Chicago, like Seattle, like Boston, like New York, they have what's called the station lounge. Sometimes it's called the Metro Lounge, or they've got a couple different names, but it's a special lounge area which is reserved only for those folks with sleeper car accommodations. So you can, again, get away from the crowds, have a very comfortable place to sit back and relax in the station before boarding your train. They typically have some snacks and drinks around. They've got TVs so you can watch the game before you get on board the train, things like that. So in Los Angeles Union Station, they do have a beautiful station lounge where you can relax during the daytime before your train rides. They'll then make the announcement for the sleeper car passengers to go ahead and board the train. Now, as I mentioned, we do have plenty of assistance available in the station. We even have the option in the bigger stations like Los Angeles. If you need it, you can get a lift to the train. They'll pick you up on a little golf cart kind of device and drive you on down to the train if you do have those mobility concerns. You'll board the Southwest Chief in the early evening, get settled into your room, kind of get the lay of the land a little bit. Then you have a fantastic dinner. Maybe after dinner, you head down to the cafe and grab a glass of wine or something like that to enjoy during the sunset. And then when you wake up the next morning, you're going to be right there in Flagstaff, Arizona. So, what happens when you get off the Amtrak train in Flagstaff is that we actually pick you up at the train station and we'll bring you right to the Grand Canyon Railway. Now, the Grand Canyon Railway is your gateway to the Grand Canyon itself. So the Amtrak train doesn't quite stop at the Grand Canyon, just because with elevation and everything, it's kind of not possible there. So we have you instead transfer to this really special train called the Grand Canyon Railway. So what will happen is we'll pick you up at the Amtrak station in Flagstaff. We'll bring you to the Grand Canyon Railway Depot. We actually include breakfast for you, so you'll have a great breakfast before you kick off. And then you'll take the beautiful Grand Canyon Railway train that you see in the photo here up to the south rim of the Grand Canyon itself. So it will take you right inside Grand Canyon National Park. You get right there to the edge of the south rim, and then we have you take a beautiful tour of the Grand Canyon. So it'll be a rim tour. You'll go to some fantastic lookouts where you can get some amazing photos of the Grand Canyon, and then come right on back and spend the night up there at one of the historic lodges inside Grand Canyon National Park. You'll then take that Grand Canyon Railway train back down to Williams, Arizona. We'll pick you up at the depot and bring you back to Flagstaff to hop back on the train back to Los Angeles. So we make it really seamless and easy. You do not need to worry about taxis or transfers or anything like that. We take care of all that for you. There's even luggage handling included in part of this vacation as well. So it's really seamless and easy on this beautiful Rails to the Grand Canyon trip. Now this one is 4 nights total. It's 2 nights on board Amtrak, 2 nights in the Grand Canyon. But certainly, as I mentioned, it is customizable, so you could easily add extra nights in the Grand Canyon if you did want to stay a little bit longer there. And this one starts at $6.99 per person. Now that is based on the coach accommodations. The reason that we don't always tell you exactly what the price is going to be with those roomettes or bedrooms is because those prices do change based on when you travel, where you travel, when you book, all kinds of different factors. But just to give you folks an idea at how affordable it can be, I did look at this trip for you just before the webinar here. I looked at going in the fall, so in October, and looking at just a random date I chose in October, this Rails to the Grand Canyon, if you did want to upgrade to the roomette accommodations for both nights, that's going and coming, so 2 nights on board the train, it's only $75 per person to upgrade to those roomettes. Now, as you'll see at the end of this presentation, we are doing a great savings offer. You can save $100 if you do upgrade to the roomettes or bedrooms. So that upgrade offer almost takes care of the entire price of upgrading. So it's really fantastic. So those roomettes, as I said, for both nights on board the train, going and coming back, $75 per person. The bedroom, if you did want to upgrade to that larger room, like I said, it's about twice the size. It's got the private facilities in the bedroom. If you did want to upgrade to the bedroom, it's just over $200 per person. It's about $215 per person to upgrade to the bedroom. And again, that's 2 nights on board the train for that $215 per person. So just to give you an idea, it can be very affordable to upgrade to those roomettes and bedrooms. So do make sure to ask us or your local travel agent when you do give us a call to inquire about any of these trips. And as I did mention, all of these rail vacations are customizable, so you can very easily start right from your hometown and get anywhere you want to go across the US. And they are very easy to customize, and that doesn't just mean starting at your hometown. It also means that you can add extra nights during the trip. You can add extra destinations, like that Rails to the Grand Canyon package we just saw. You can add a Los Angeles getaway on the end if you've never visited Los Angeles before. Very easy for us to get you some accommodations and sightseeing there. And as well, you have a wide variety of hotels to choose from. So we have 3-star, 4-star, and 5-star options. We work with the chain hotels if you're a member of a certain brand, or we do have boutique options for you as well if you want something a little bit more custom and unique. So it just depends on your budget, comfort level, the occasion that you're traveling for, whatever it is you're looking for, we can certainly assist you with those hotel accommodations. And with the hotel accommodations, they are typically located very centrally. They're right near the train station. As I mentioned in Washington, D.C., one of my favorite train hotels, rather, is right across the road from the train station. Or we have hotels located right next to some of the fantastic sightseeing in each destination. So, for example, again, Washington, D.C., if you don't want to stay right next to the train station, we do have a hotel right next to the Smithsonian museums as well. So if you're more going to think during your trip, you're going to visit all those Smithsonians, you might want to stay at that hotel right down by the National Mall. It's really just up to you and how you travel. We can certainly accommodate anything there for you. Now, we've looked at a few great trips here. This one, I think the Grand Rail experience, I love to include it on these presentations which talk about the overnight experience, because this is the trip to take if you want to experience as many Amtrak routes as possible. So this one here starts in Chicago. You get 2 overnights on your way to Seattle, 1 overnight down to Los Angeles, 2 overnights to New Orleans, 1 overnight up to Washington, D.C., and then one more overnight back to Chicago. So you have 7 overnights on board the train throughout this 14-day journey, and you get to experience many of Amtrak's most stunning routes. One of which is the Empire Builder. That's the beginning of your trip here from Chicago out to Seattle. Goes through the northern Rocky Mountains along this journey. It actually passes right through Glacier National Park up in Montana, and then you actually hit the Cascade Mountains as you come into Washington State. So there's a couple of different mountain ranges on this Empire Builder journey. You'll see those incredible snow-capped peaks, winding mountain passes, as you can see in the right-hand photo there. It's a really spectacular and stunning ride. And then we have you spend the night in Seattle, and we've got some great sightseeing included there as well, including admission to the Space Needle. And again, that's all customizable. If you're afraid of heights, for example, you do not have to go up to the top of the Space Needle. Maybe we substitute in a tour out to Mount Rainier or Olympic National Park. Then you take the train from Seattle all the way down to Los Angeles. That is Amtrak's beautiful and famous Coast Starlight train. The Coast Starlight train, as I said, goes from Seattle all the way down to Los Angeles. Now, when you first start out up in the Seattle area, you're going through the Cascade Mountain Range again as you're going through the Pacific Northwest. So you've got these beautiful snow-capped mountains. And then once you hit California, the train really hugs the coastline all along for hours and hours. You can see incredible views of the Pacific Ocean. You can watch the surfers out in the waves. You can watch little seals and stuff play in the bays. It's really beautiful and fantastic ride on the famous Coast Starlight train all the way down the Pacific coast. You do spend a night in Los Angeles, and again, certainly we can add extra nights if you want to have a little more time there. And then you board the beautiful Sunset Limited. Now, before you took the Empire Builder, that's the northernmost route in the US. The Sunset Limited is the southernmost Amtrak route. It travels from Los Angeles to New Orleans, going through some beautiful desert scenery there through Arizona and New Mexico, and then coming into Bayou country in Louisiana and stopping for a couple nights in New Orleans. Now, New Orleans is such a fantastic place to visit. It's such a vibrant city full of culture and music and food. The cuisine, of course, in New Orleans is incredible. I highly recommend you try the jambalaya while you're there. And then you board Amtrak's Crescent train. Now, the Crescent is a Viewliner train, so we talked about those two different types of trains. The Crescent is a single level train. It is that Viewliner train, so you do get to experience both different types of trains on this journey. You'll take the Crescent up to fantastic Washington, D.C., and you have that time there to explore all of the fantastic museums and monuments before taking the Capital Limited on back to Chicago. So again, this one here, it's 6 nights hotel accommodations, 7 nights on board Amtrak altogether, 14-day trip, and it starts just at $21.49 per person. So really, again, pretty fantastic experience for you folks. And then if you do want to do a round trip journey, you want to see multiple Amtrak train routes, but you don't quite have 2 weeks, the Northern Rail experience is the trip for you. This one is just 9 days. It does the Empire Builder from Chicago to Seattle, the Coast Starlight from Seattle down to San Francisco, and my personal favorite train ride, the California Zephyr from San Francisco back to Chicago. So as I mentioned, you do stay again in Seattle, and again, we've got some great sightseeing options for you there, including a hop on, hop off tour and admission to the Space Needle. You take the stunning Coast Starlight train ride down the Pacific Coast, down to San Francisco. You do spend a couple nights in San Francisco, and we do have you get out and embrace nature a little bit. We have a fantastic sightseeing tour of the Muir Woods, those giant towering redwood trees in the bottom left-hand photo, as well as a bay cruise included for you, so you can get some fantastic photos of the Golden Gate Bridge from your bay cruise in San Francisco. And then you take, in my opinion, the most beautiful train ride in the US, the California Zephyr train from San Francisco all the way back to Chicago. And what makes this ride so special is how vastly different the scenery is along all the routes. So you go through the Sierra Nevada mountains leaving California. You go through stunning desert scenery in Nevada. You come into Utah and it's these beautiful towering red rock sandstone formations. You follow the Colorado River all the way into Colorado. And then you go through the incredible Rocky Mountains through Colorado, through Denver, and then it's prairie country on your way back up into Chicago. So rolling fields of wildflowers. Uh, they turn golden at night as you go through the sunset. It's really beautiful, fantastic rides. And this trip here starts at $16.99 per person, and that is based on the coach seating. But this one here, as we saw, it has 5 nights on board Amtrak. Again, I just picked dates at the end of October just to give you a sample. If you did take those roomette accommodations, it's only $175 per person for 5 nights on board the train. And that's all of your meals on board the train included. That's those roomette accommodations. So you've got beds to sleep in at night, you've got showers to relax during your trip. It's really fantastic. And as you can see, quite affordable, just $175 per person. That's based at the end of October, taking this Northern Rail experience. Now, we also have some fantastic offers for you. I did promise we've got a great upgrade offer for you. That is our promotion here, Upgrade 100. So you can save $100 off of your trip if you do reference this code when you call us or your local travel agent. Just make sure you mention the phrase Upgrade 100, and we'll take $100 off of your booking for upgrading to the roomettes or bedrooms. And the great thing is that is combinable with some of our other amazing special offers that we have going on right now. Just visit us at amtrakvacations.com/special offers to see all of the fantastic offers that we have available. We've got some great savings on round trip vacations like Northern Rail Experience, on Grand Canyon trips, and so much more. And just to remind you again, we do have that maximum flexibility. If you do book before the 30th of September, you've got the great flexibility to make any changes that you need to. Of course, Amtrak does have some everyday discounts as well, children, seniors, and military and veterans, if you do qualify as any of those. Now, I only had time to go over just a couple itineraries today because I wanted to show you so much of the onboard accommodations, but we've got hundreds more trips all across the USA and up into Canada, so do visit us at amtrakvacations.com, call your local travel agent, or call us to help you plan. We do have some great webinars coming up next week, as I mentioned, on the national parks. And the following week, 5 best train vacations in Canada for next year. And again, please do feel free to ask questions. I do promise that we will get any answers to you that I don't have time to get to on our broadcast today. I am running pretty close to time here. And just a question for you quickly, and that is, what destination are you interested in visiting and when? All right, so I do have some great questions from you folks. I am going to take just a couple here before we sign off, and I promise we will get any other answers out to you if I don't have time to hit yours here. So Lisa asks, with the sleeper cabins, is there a limit to the size of your carry-on luggage? Great question, Lisa. So we do have the dimensions of the luggage. I don't know them off the top of my head. I think it's 28 by 24 by 16, but don't quote me on that. Certainly just call us or your travel agent. We can get you that. But I do recommend bringing a little bit of a smaller bag into the room itself if it is a roomette or especially because there's not a ton of space in there, and then you can leave the bigger bag down in the luggage rack. So great question. Let's see, we have another question here from Martin, and Martin would like to know, do you have to pay for the trip all at once? So great question, Martin. No, you can very easily put down a deposit, and then your final payment on the trip is not due until 60 days before you actually travel. So fantastic question. And, oh gosh, sorry folks, that is all that I have time for today. So I do want to thank you so much. I do promise, I see we have lots more questions. We will get those answers over to you. But thank you so much for joining me today. I really appreciate you taking the time out of your day to spend with us here. Have a fantastic rest of your day. Thank you so much.